It's Dr. Jen Crenshaw for Management 6931, Managing Talent and Culture, Leadership, Engagement, and Performance. So I wanted to come to you and talk to you about a book that I think you guys would agree we read a lot of books for this class. And so there are a few that I think are important to our topic, but I did not want to make them required reading for you guys. And so I'm giving a strong recommendation to this book, especially as it relates to our topic of collaboration and negotiation. Wanted to make a video for you on it, but did not expect you to read the book. So I'm going to go through it quickly here. The Triangle of Truth, a surprisingly simple secret to resolving conflict, large and small, by Lisa Earle McLeod. Read this book a couple of years ago and have gone back to it time and time again, really to look for nuggets. And when you're leading human resources, especially in a startup world where things are moving fast, lots of innovation going on, we do tend to have lots of conflict, lots of tension, though I think positive tension. So in my opinion, conflict is not automatically defined as bad, but the Triangle of Truth is defined by the author, Lisa McLeod, as being the ability to hold two seemingly conflicting ideas in your mind at the same time and assimilate them in a way that makes their whole greater than the sum of their parts. It's how one side can be right without making the other side wrong. A lot of times in conflict, we talk about compromise. We talk about collaboration. Collaboration is great. Let's just consider how we apply that collaboration, making sure that we are not being exclusive on the perspectives that we consider. So here's the Triangle of Truth, right? So if we consider just my truth, your truth, and that's where we're stuck, right? The red zone here being like, do we do it your way? Do we do it my way? Do we try to come, and you hear a lot about, somewhere, meeting in the middle. A lot of great books out there, one by a hostage negotiator that talks about never splitting the difference, right? And so, really saying when you are dealing in life and death situations like hostage negotiation, you really cannot come up with a solution that's just saying, hey, we'll do a little bit of yours and a little bit of mine. What do you do? Say, please don't kill 10 people. It's okay to, only hurt 2. No, right? We have to get to a better solution than that, a higher level solution. And that's really what the author for the Triangle of Truth is talking about here, right? Moving beyond the argument, really elevating our thinking to stop behaving as if we have competing agendas, when most of the time we do have complementary ones. If we loop back to some of the principles that we've been talking about in this class, right? This idea that are we all tied together with our mission? Have we come together in the organization or on a particular team with a known charter, a known mission? We're all working toward the same thing. And so if that's true, if we're working toward the same goals, then we really shouldn't find ourselves with competing agendas, but just different perspectives, right? And so how can we combine those perspectives, a little of mine, a little of yours, all of mine, all of yours, and come to a higher level solution? So this book does a really great job of pointing out, without going too deep into this idea of like our primal brain is most comfortable choosing a category for everything, right? We've heard this before. It comes up a lot in diversity, equity, and inclusion training, where we like to say, it's not, we know we have bias. We know we have prejudice. It is programmed into our primal brains to see something that we don't understand or something that is different from what we know as potentially a risk, right? And so when it comes to the behavior of our colleagues, of our teammates, we feel most comfortable, our brain almost automatically, without our permission, will categorize, right? That someone's either acting right or they're acting wrong, right? Right is if they're in agreement with us, wrong is if they disagree with us, right? But instead, are those really the wrong categories, right? What if we believe that everyone is both flawed and fabulous? Look, these aren't my words. I took this right from the author, Lisa McLeod, right? She said, what if we stopped seeing our teammate or our colleague as being wrong in their thinking or having wrong ideas, right? Or thinking of them as flawed, but instead admitting that we know we're flawed, but are we also fabulous? So we know that in being on teams, right, we're going to be dealing with relationships. And another book, right, that I think is definitely worth checking out is a book written by Waldinger and Schultz, who were studying at Harvard. And they are currently the researchers for the longest longitudinal study on human life. And they were looking at human flourishing, right? And they wrote this book, some of the findings of their study, The Good Life. And what it came down to is good relationships lead to health and happiness. The trick is that those relationships have to be nurtured, right? So when we are working and we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, we are in typically the best times in our lives, right? This is when we have lots of relationships, our coworkers, our families, our houses of worship, our community organizations. These are all contributing to relationships. And these relationships can be the difference for us in being healthy and happy and flourishing, or causing heartache, right? And so we want to nourish these relationships. And a part of that is this idea of not labeling things either or, right? The book, The Triangle of Truth, talks about not having to pick my truth or your truth, but finding that higher level learning, right? And so really focusing in on, right, preventing us from seeing the big picture and finding ways to create success, right? So success is not found in ignoring or compromising our dualities, but in learning to leverage them. So if we are both flawed and fabulous, let's embrace that, right? If our colleagues are both flawed and fabulous, let's embrace that. Right, we are a human tapestry, right? What one of us lacks, the other one brings to the table, right? So if we embrace our own individual dualities and how we can make each other better, right? We are going to bring that beauty of that we think of when we think of a tapestry. I love the Stephen Covey quote, "We judge ourselves by our intentions. We judge others by their actions or behaviors." So true, right? Like oftentimes if someone lets us know that we've done something that's hurt their feelings, right? Or offended their values, we are often likely to be heard saying, "It was not my intention," right? And I mean, I believe that's true. I believe that when people apologize and they say, I'm sorry that I hurt you, it was not my intention. I believe that's true. But isn't it interesting? I think Stephen Covey's right? Like we think of our, we're quick to say, that was not my intention, please forgive me, right? But if the shoe were on the other foot or looking at it from the other side, right? We're really thinking about not whether that what that person's intentions were, we're really thinking about their actual actions or behaviors. So with that, right, if we really try to use the triangle ourselves individually, right, to not be in that either or stuck thinking of looking at someone's actions and saying, look, I can only conclude from your actions that you must be X, right? When that may not be true, right? There may be a duality there for them in the same way that there is a duality for us, right? We know that we are a little bit good and a little bit bad, just as other people are a little bit good and a little bit bad. So the triangle of truth only works as well externally as we're willing to apply it internally, right? So what McLeod talks about in this book that I have found so incredibly helpful in business relationships, in personal relationships, is truly taking a pause and asking myself, right? Can I consider seeing it differently? Doesn't mean that I have to consider seeing it their way instead of mine, right? But can I see my way? Can I see their way? Can we come up with a higher level solution out of both our ways of thinking? So the book brings up the Stockdale paradox. And the Stockdale paradox was first found written, at least first written about in Jim Collins' Good to Great. Stockdale was was a soldier in Vietnam and was captive for over 7 years in the prison that is often referred to as the Hanoi Hilton. And that's a picture there of the Hanoi Hilton or the Hoa Lo prison, and then the memorial to some of the prisoners there. This is an amazingly somber place in Vietnam. I did have the opportunity to visit about 10 years ago, and it was it will strike awe for sure. But the Stockdale paradox, right, really talks about what Stockdale shared in his writings after he returned, right? And like I said, Jim Collins wrote about it in Good to Great, where he said, the Stockdale paradox is the ability to retain the faith that you will prevail in the end, regardless of difficulties, and at the same time confronting the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be, right? And that being able to do this, right, similar to the definition of the triangle of truth, right, holding both ideas in your mind at the same time, right? So Stockdale talks about that his fellow prisoners that held on to hope, right? And they would say to him and say to each other, I'm going to hold on to the hope that we'll be home by Christmas. And I shared with you that he spent over 7 years in that prison. And so there were more than, there was 7 Christmases. And so each Christmas would come and go, and they were not home by Christmas. And he shared that for those prisoners who put their hope in we'll be home by without facing the harsh realities of the situation were the ones who didn't make it. And often they, will speak about them having died of a broken heart, having died of hopelessness, right? But Stockdale was one who has been known to write about the fact that, yes, he held faith that the American government would not allow them to stay in the prison. But he also held on to the facts that it was not likely to happen quickly. And so this idea, this paradox, right, is that the paradox is very specifically the and situation, right? How do we both have faith that good can happen while facing the facts and reality of the situation and having actions and preparing ourselves to find that higher level thinking in the face of that reality. I have this additional picture here. This, you'll see, it mentions Sybil Stockdale stands to Nixon's left, and this picture was taken in 1969. And Stockdale did not return home until 1971. And so, might have even been 72, but it was 71 or 72 before he was released from the prison in Hanoi, Vietnam. Sybil maintained her hope while facing the facts by bringing together and forming the National League of Families for those POWs. And she truly believed that if she assembled the families to continuously go to their representatives and draw attention to the prisoner of war situation, that they would be more likely to, get the attention of President Nixon and the Department of Defense. And in the end, though the admiral didn't know it while he was in that prison, exactly what his wife was doing to work on his behalf and the behalf of other prisoners, right? It was her choice to not give in to the stark reality of, was he alive? She didn't even know for sure if he was alive, right? But she fought to bring awareness, and ultimately, it ended with those prisoners who were still alive being released to come home. And so we often talk about the duality of optimism versus pessimism, right? We'll ask people, are you a glass half full or a glass half empty person, right? And in this book, The Triangle of Truth, the author draws our attention to the fact that that may very well be a false choice. Yes, it is a choice, but maybe a false choice. Is it really optimism versus pessimism? I mean, sometimes facing a half-empty glass is just fact, right? A little bit silly to, kind of split the hair on like what words do we use to describe it. It's more important to think, yes, maybe in fact my glass is half empty, but I have faith that I can put more in the glass, right? So the facts around I have space to add more, or there is more to have, right? But what are those facts, and what is our faith, and can we choose love the way I think of Sybil Stockdale choosing love and really focusing that love on the other families and helping to support them? And so in summary, right, the book, The Triangle of Truth, really is a great way of thinking about not compromise, not a I win if you lose approach to conflict on teams or in work situations, but instead really building on these 7 principles of the triangle, right? So with the foundation being embracing and, right? It was that we're not just flawed or not just fabulous, but we are both, right? We are and. So embracing and lifts our mind above the either or instincts to embrace the full, flawed, and fabulous duality of the human condition. If we make peace with ambiguity, we choose love over fear to face the facts with faith, even in the face of uncertain outcomes. When we hold space for other perspectives, we put our own agenda on pause to eliminate the false barrier between us and others, right? That it's not, we think about that, holding space for that perspective. We don't have to see the other perspective as being bad and ours as being good, but instead, right, that and, right, they're both of our perspectives have some good, and we can hold space for that instead of seeing them as the enemy or their idea as the enemy. Seek higher ground, right? Break past the comfort and the convenience of false choices by thinking beyond holding your ground or compromising in the middle, right? We don't want to compromise in the middle. We want more. We want better. We don't want to give up any of our idea. We don't want our colleague to have to give up on any of their idea. We want to bring all the ideas together to the best solution possible, seeking higher ground. Discerning intent. Wow, this one's powerful, and I do hope that you'll take the time to read The Triangle of Truth. And because this idea of discerning intent, right? Withholding judgments about the imperfect solution in order to discern the inherent truths behind them, right? We can hold space for other perspectives, and we can look toward that higher level solution. But first, we really have to be willing, and it's not easy, right? If somebody is cutting us off in a conversation when we're sharing our ideas and we're not being heard, it's very, very difficult to put our reactions on pause, to listen to their idea and stay present and stay curious, right, about that idea. It's hard. But that's the work here, right? Really discerning the intent, not judging their intent, but discerning their intent. And I think, just the difference there is pretty powerful. Elevating others. Ask big questions and share little stories to elevate intellect and touch emotion. It's a great chapter about elevating others and the importance of, like, when we ask big questions, we really open up the idea of, like, and she talks about an example of her 5th grade daughter doing with her classmates doing a great project where the teacher asked them the question, why did people follow Hitler? And it was a great question that really then got to the heart of the human condition, right? And ultimately, a group of 5th graders ended up deciding, right, that the reason people followed Hitler is because they found it easier to join him in blaming people for the societal problems that were in Germany at that time, rather than solving those problems. So it was easier to say, hey, there's a superior race of people. And if that superior race were allowed to rule, then we would not have these problems. So placing blame and fighting over that blame was easier to the German society of the time than to actually solve their economic problems and the cultural problems that they were facing. What a nugget of truth from a group of 5th graders, right? And is it because they were brilliant 5th graders? It was because there was a really great question that was asked. And then when they went out and did the research, they came across a bunch of stories that then really drew that picture for them. And it's how they came to their conclusion. Brilliant conclusion. Right? So ask big questions, share little stories, and with that, you both touch on the intellect and the emotion of humans, of people. And then, of course, at the very top, be the peace, right? Embrace differences with your head, with your heart, and become a peacemaker in work, love, and life. Looking for opportunities to not vilify the other person or vilify the other idea, but really looking for opportunities to find that, not being the peace by just saying, oh, we should do it your way, right? But finding the peace by truly higher level thinking and bringing all the perspectives together to come up with the best possible solution. So that is the summary of the Triangle of Truth. There's so many great nuggets in here, but I didn't want to have this video be too long. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you over in the discussion group where we are talking about collaboration this week, and I'm looking forward to it.